Well, welcome back to another exciting video. And what we're talking about today, one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life was change my picking style. So before I jump into this, I just want to say real quick, I've been getting a tremendous amount of people commenting saying that they're not getting the notifications to my channel anymore and that they were getting them, but then all of a sudden they've stopped. And now I don't know what YouTube is doing to prevent this from happening, but I have a lot of my friends who are subscribed to my channel also, and even my wife, and they're telling me that they're no longer getting the notifications. And my wife will get them, but she'll get them like 3 and 4 days later that I've put a new video up. So I read this big article on YouTube, and they're saying that if you're not getting notifications, just to go in to the settings, just turn everything off and turn it back on, accept all notifications. And that should take care of the problem. Now, if it'll actually do it, who knows? Because YouTube changes their things daily, and it's nearly impossible to keep up with everything that YouTube is constantly changing and constantly doing. But make sure you have the bell, the icon clicked to receive the notifications. And if you're having problems not getting them, please let me know. And that way I can kind of research into it further. And I've sent YouTube an email about it, but you just get a pointless corporate response back. So who knows what's actually going on. So, but what I wanted to talk about here today is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life was having to change my picking style. Well, why would you do that? Why would you change your picking style? Well, when I was, you may or may not know this about me, but I did not start playing guitar. I didn't start playing anything till I was 31 years old. I literally spent all my teens and 20s on motorcycles. That's what I did. Street, dirt, enduro, the whole 9 yards. That's all we did. Every weekend, we were somewhere. We were at the racetrack. We were in the woods. We were in the mountains. We were in a different state riding. That's just what we did. So when I was doing that, also in my 20s, I was super heavy into martial arts. I took Taekwondo for many years, and then I switched over to Shaolin Kung Fu, which I adored. I absolutely loved it. But right after I turned 30, I started getting this weird interest that just popped up out of nowhere in music. And one of the things that really brought it on was my love for Randy Rhoads, which was obviously, at that time, way out of my skill set. I mean, because I had no skill set. But it was actually, I bought the album, Gary Moore, Ballads and Blues. And that is really, if I was going to say there is a guitar player that got me going down this road, it would be Gary Moore. Because that album it is a phenomenal album. And, being that I was a massive metal guy, this was like nothing else I was listening to. And it just really opened up a lot of doors in music for me. But that is what got me going down the road. Now, when I started tinkering around with guitar, I also started tinkering around with piano. And piano was becoming, at that point, my main instrument. I absolutely adore the piano. I love the piano. And so I had been playing for only about a year and a half. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go to school for music. It's only a 2-year school. It's not like I went to Juilliard. But I thought this would be the easiest way for me to get the most knowledge in the shortest amount of time about guitar and piano. And so I went off and did that, and then I took a jazz guitar class from a dude named Larry Vincent, who was just a monster jazz guitar player. And that kind of switched my gears from a piano major to a minor guitar major. And like I said, it was only a 2-year school. So like I said, it's not like I was going for a master's in guitar at Juilliard or, some ridiculous school. But I had started playing in a very specific manner because that's all I knew. And, starting as an adult without taking any lessons on the front end, you figure things out on your own. Pretty smart guy, I can figure this shit out. So what I had done is I've been seeing lately a lot of stuff about pick slanting on YouTube. And it seems like every other damn video I find, it's something about pick slanting. And, and pick slanting, it's a good thing. And I'm not saying it's nor good nor bad. What I am saying is, if you don't have limitations in your own picking style, I don't care if you're pick slanting or not, become the best picker you can with what you have, unless you hit a wall, which is what I did. I hit a wall. So And this was only about 3 years ago. So I've been playing the same way all these years, and I've been playing with jazz picks all these years. And you've heard me talk about my blue chip, my little, and it's teeny tiny. I mean, the pick is incredibly small. And so I developed a style playing that way. And I didn't know at the time, but I was actually an upward pick slanter. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And the reason I stayed with that so long is because I actually had blazing fast speed. I kind of went through a point in my life to where speed was more important than anything else as far as soloing. And I became obsessed with it. How fast can I go? Can I go faster? Can I go faster? Can I go faster? And that kind of solidified my picking style that I had because I was good at it. Even with the limitations I knew I had, I didn't want to change because I was very good at playing fast. So what it is when you're upward pick slanting, if these are your strings, you're picking this way. Downward pick slanting is this way, all right? And the premise behind pick slanting is you're actually picking in and out like this. So when you go to make string changes, you're already up in the air above the string. Well, upward pick slanting works the same exact way. You're picking this way, and you're moving in and out. And when you go to make string changes, you're already above the strings. So it kind of helps transitioning between the strings. And that's how I've been playing forever. And there's nothing wrong with it. 'Cause I mean, even out of all the guitar teachers that I had, not one of them said, hey, dude, you should not pick that way. And picking is kind of a personal thing for you. There's no really right way. There's no really wrong way. I can show you 10 guitar players who are monsters, and all 10 of them pick crazily different. So you can't say, well, if you're not downward pick slanting, then you don't know how to pick. Well, if you're not upward pick slanting, then you don't know how to pick. It doesn't work that way. You take the tools you have and you make them work for what you have. But with me picking this way, with the upward pick slanting, I did notice that I had a limitation. I had a couple of limitations, and it was really starting to bother me because as I've gotten older, and even though I still listen to metal, I love metal, my horizons have changed a bit. And so I started thinking, well, I'm having an issue with a couple of things. How do I fix that issue? Well, let me show you what the issues were. Let me grab a guitar. I'll be right back. Now, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. I'm going to try to keep my guitar up here, which is very hard for me to play with a guitar like this. But when I picked, like I said, I upward pick slanted. So I picked, let me see if I turn sideways, it's really not going to, it might help some. So I kind of picked like this. And you kind of move in and out of the strings this way, not this way. And I rested my hand, the palm of my hand, this fat fleshy part, on the body. So my hand position was like this. And I moved it. My hand position was here. And I moved my hand accordingly to what I was playing. So, sorry, I'm looking in the monitor to see if you guys can even see this. Let me get this out of the way. Does that help at all? Maybe a little bit. So my hand, and you can see on my guitars that I've had for a while, you can see where I've worn on the guitar right here from my hand, where my hand rocks right here. Well, the beauty of it is, like I said, I had incredible speed because I had complete contact with my hand and the body of the guitar. So I knew exactly where everything was at all times. And it just worked well for me. Well, I started noticing a couple of issues that were coming up. And I had been avoiding them because for what I was playing at the time, it really wasn't that big of a deal. But now that I've gotten older and I've expanded what I play, even though I talk mostly about metal here on the channel, except for when I'm on my piano, then I turn into some kind of sappy goofball. There's a lot of things that I play that I don't talk about on my channel. Not right now, but maybe one day. But one thing that I did notice is when I'm doing these fast riffs, and then I had to strum, and we'll take Crazy Train for an example. When you're doing this riff where you got to mute, and then you got to make the strum down. I had a little bit of a problem with that because of the way I was picking. With my upward pick slanting, I could mute that string, but when I went to go make that strum, since my pick's already pointing out this way, away from the guitar, and with my hand on the body, I was having a hard time getting down quickly, making the strum because of the angle of my pick. Because if you're strumming down and your pick's this way, that's not a very good approach for strumming down. And then because of where my hand was with the angle of my hand was wanting to slip away from the strings. But now, as long as I was doing single note stuff, I was fantastic. And I could burn. I could literally burn playing that way. And that's why I play with the jazz picks, faster, faster, faster. A lot of attack, a little bitty tip, blah, 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 blah. So that started to become an issue for me. And then another thing that was becoming an issue is I was working on this song. It's my own stuff that I kind of, how you sit around and you work on your own shit from time to time. Well, the entire guitar part is palm muted. And when I was downward pick slanting, again, like this, I was having a very hard time getting the palm muting everything I wanted when I was picking out the individual notes. I was really struggling with that. So a couple of years ago, and it was after I started this channel, it was before, I really started getting into this channel. I decided, well, I've got these limitations. I've got to change them. And I got to do it now because I'm not getting any younger. So I set off on the course to change the way I pick guitar. And I'm going to tell you, that was one of the hardest things musically I've ever done in my life. I had such a habit of upward pick slanting and playing the way that I play with my hand against the body that I could not get out of it. And I struggled and struggled with that for months. Now, here I am a couple of years later. Now, I have fully changed my picking style. Now, the good part of it is the things that I couldn't do before is now I have no problem, with those strumming chords. Let's see if I can get it up here. It's hard for me to play with it up here like this. I have no problem with that. And I also have no problem now when I'm doing all these muting passages. Now I can mute the entire time when I play. Because that was one of the things that was always missing in my solos. I could just never really do those really cool muted soloing passages because of the way I picked. So those were two shortcomings that I wanted to overcome. And I got to tell you, that was very, very hard to do. And what I did is I kind of started just to throw away everything that I knew about picking and basically started over. And I got to tell you, that was incredibly hard. When you are so used to picking like this, and then you switch to this, it changes everything that you do. And I had to relearn the position. I had to relearn what my home position was. Everybody has a home position when you pick. And a lot of people, it's, fingers on the guitar, be it a pinky, whatever, or they'll hang on to the bottom of their pickup. I've seen John Petrucci actually do that, hold on to the bottom of his pickup. Gary Moore would do a lot of this finger on the guitar thing. Or some of them, like Eddie Van Halen, he has his by his arm, the way he positions his arm over his strings when he picks, and that becomes his home position. Well, I had to change my home position. And that was one of the hardest things I did, because I had to go from picking against the guitar like this, if you can see this, to picking like this. And that was incredibly difficult for me. And one of the things that added to the difficulty was the fact that I was using such a short pick that now, when I was picking like this, because I had to relearn my style, I was missing a lot of picked notes. And that really added frustration to the process. So while I kept playing, I was just kind of getting to the point where, I've got to work this out, because I feel that I have gone as far as I can go with that picking style. And this is a bad thing to realize, man, when you're getting older in life. This is a horrible thing to realize. But I felt like I was getting as far as I could go with that picking style. And the music I was wanting to do, I had to make the adjustment. So I actually tried multiple different ways to try to figure out which path to attack. And that was incredibly, incredibly hard for me to do. I tried, the downward pickings, uh, the upward picking slanting downward, where you hold the pick like at a extreme angle this way, maybe not this extreme, and it's the exact opposite of what I was doing, but you're picking in and out like this. And somebody who does that brilliantly is Zakk Wylde. If you look at the close-ups of Zakk Wylde, I mean, the guy literally picks in and out like this from the guitar. It's insane. I tried that, and it just didn't work because the mechanics of my body at my age, I can't get accustomed to that motion after years of this motion. I just can't do it. I cannot. I mean, I probably could if I sat here for the next 2 years, but I don't have 2 years to sit here and do that. So I tried a flatter approach with a bit of an angle on the pick to where I could rest the palm of my hand across the back of the bridge. I can't. It's very hard for me to play this way, so forgive me with it this high like this. And that was a little uncomfortable, but over time, I started to hone in on it. And it was to the point where I started to become not obsessed, but it was one of those, I can do this. I know I can do this. And so I would just sit around and do this. Just back and forth. Just trying to get the feel of that motion. Because one thing I needed to do, since I was an upward pick slanter, is when I'm playing on an extremely high gain channel, this part of my hand right here would rub the strings, my low E and A string, and you could hear it. When I was picking, it would go, and it took me a little while to figure out what that noise was. And I actually figured this out. I bought one of the new John Petrucci Majesties a few years ago. Great guitar, really didn't like it, so I ended up sending it back. But what was going on was the pickups on that guitar were so close to the strings, and the pickups were extremely hot, and you add to it using a high gain channel. Every single noise you make against that string becomes amplified, obviously, the more distortion. So when I'm sitting here playing, all I was hearing, even though the notes were sounding off, all I was hearing was, and it was driving me insane. So I got to thinking, now I got to change. So I would sit there and just up and down, up and down, up and down. And actually what I did, believe it or not, is I took a thumb ring that, thumb rings that dudes wear, and put it on my finger. And because when I'm playing with that upward pick slant, that metal ring would hit the string and sound god awful. So I put that thumb ring on, and I would sit there because now, and of course I don't know, you really aren't going to be able to see it, but if you look now, there's a good half-inch gap between my thumb and the string to where when I was playing this way, there was no gap. So I put that thumb ring on, and I would just sit here and do this. And I would keep adjusting. If I would start to hear the ring from the habit of trilling back down, which I'm a much faster picker this way, I would start to bring it back out like this, to where I'm not as fast as a picker this way. But that allowed me to overcome two of the biggest obstacles that I was having. And one was, getting on that down strum quickly from a riff, from a trill. I was having a very hard time doing it when I was up picking. I just couldn't do it. It kind of sucked. It just really kind of sucked doing it that way. So this way kind of fixed that problem for me. So like I said, I put the ring on, and every time that I would listen for that, because you could hear that ring hitting the string, I would listen for it. And every time it would hit, I would, when I was playing this way, my habit would force me back in towards the strings. And every time that ring would hit the string, I would force my hand back out and try to keep it at that medium. And that worked. So after a lot of trial and error, I finally got to the point to where I can play and now my pick approach is kind of flat angled like this, but I finally got to the point where I can play like this. And it was a very hard road to get down playing like that. But it solved two of the biggest problems I was having. And one was, doing a little to a strum. And the other one was being able to do these muted solo passages, which I never could do in the past. I could, but it was very awkward. But now that I've accomplished that, it has caused one new problem. And the new problem is now I cannot pick nowhere near as fast as I used to be able to. I'm literally at half the speed. And I don't know if it's just a mechanical thing for me that when I'm holding the string, the pick this way, my hand just doesn't want to rock back and forth nowhere near as fast as it from this position wanted to rock in and out, and using this as a fulcrum to give me something to rest my hand on. My hand moves so much faster that way. Well, why don't you just use both? Well, you can, but it's kind of hard because I don't want to get back into that old habit of playing like that all the time, because the shortcomings of that were much worse than not being able to play fast. But I have lost a tremendous amount of speed. And to give you an idea, now I can't do this anymore. I mean, it's been a couple of years since I've really done that. And I was actually sitting, that's what gave me the idea for this video. I was sitting there trying to do it, and I was like, oh my God, I was missing picking strokes everywhere because I have pretty much erased that from my style of playing. And I really can't do it from this position. Like I said, this is kind of hard. But this is about as fast as I can pick now. That's about as fast as I can go now, to where I used to be able to go twice that speed. So even though I felt it was necessary to change my picking style, I did lose a lot of speed. But I gained two other things that I actually felt were a little more important than just balls out speed. I love speed. Speed is great. I love watching guys just absolutely burn on a guitar. And for what I'm doing, I really don't notice the loss of speed I have with this new picking style unless we're playing like a Cult of Personality. That's kind of when I really notice it, because on that one, Reed is just picking so damn fast on that. So he's picking so fast, it's kind of hard to decipher some of what it is. But that's where I really notice it, is when I'm playing songs like that my speed is just not what it used to be. And I don't know if I'll ever get that speed back. But at this stage of my life, and for what I'm hoping my future plans are musically, I really don't know if it's that important enough to worry about it at this point. Because right now I'm a little more worried about accuracy. And I'm not going to comp out and say composition, but I guess I'm going to comp out and say composition. And I still play fast when I can. But there's other aspects that as I've gotten older that have become more important than just blazing all the time. And the only way I could get those aspects was to change my picking style. So I got to tell you, that is literally one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, was change my picking style. I mean, it wasn't something I thought, well, hell, I can do this in a month or two. It took a year just for me to get a damn feel for it, a proper feel for it. And a lot of it is because I'm older. If I was 16 doing this, I'd have probably got it like that. But, once you get over 30, 35, it's very hard to break those old habits you've been doing your whole life. When you've been doing something for 20 years, it's very hard to get out of that. And especially when you're making a mechanical change like that. It's extremely difficult, but it can be done. And I am living proof that it can be done. And I dreaded doing it, but I had no choice, because the roads were no longer converging. It was just a straight path. And I had all these forks that I was wanting to go down that I couldn't. I was just on that straight path. So I either had to pick the path of super speed or the path of a little more technical ability, not quite as fast, but a couple of things that I felt were very important to me in my picking prowess. And so I chose that road. I had to get off that straight road, and I took a turn. So that was the whole point of this video, is just, the things that I've done. Because I'm going to start talking about things like that. Being that I started music as a much, much older musician, I didn't start at 5 years old. I didn't start till I was 31 years old. So I'm going to start talking about things like that. And there's going to be a lot of podcasting I'm going to do. And this one actually will end up being a podcast. The best that it can be, even though there is visuals, but it will be listed on my YouTube channel as a podcast. So, and I'm going to talk about other things and other hurdles I had to go through starting as an adult, the problems that I had. And some of it will be on piano because some of it has to do with theory, and some of it will be on guitar, of course. So I'm going to talk about that in case there's any people, because I've ran into so many people, hell, I'm too old to start playing. Well, no, you're not. You're never too old to start playing. If you're going to start at 65, you're not going to be Eddie Van Halen by the time you're 70, but you're going to learn a lot and have a lot of fun by the time you're 70. And that's kind of the point. You're always going to have roadblocks. I don't care who you are. Even the best musicians I know have roadblocks. But the people who do this for a living full time, they have the time to sit and work it out. And they do it fast because they have such a great skill set. When you have older musicians like myself that started as an adult, as a full-fledged working adult, post-college, post-everything, it takes a bit more work, but it can be achieved. And like I said, I am proof that it can be achieved. So I'm going to wrap this up right there. Please subscribe to my channel. If you have not subscribed, subscribing is free. And if you want to support my channel further, you can jump over to my Patreon page. You can support that. You can get everything that I do. You can any tracks that I do, any backing tracks, any tabs. It's only $1 a month, and it helps support my channel and lets me do things like this and keep bringing videos to you guys. So it's only $1 a month. Please like, please subscribe, and please share the video because sharing does help the likes. Sharing does help the algorithm substantially with YouTube. And with YouTube, who knows what the algorithm is going to be tomorrow? Whatever it is today, it will not be tomorrow. So it's always a hoop we're having to jump through trying to figure out what our next move is and the easiest ways to grow, the best ways to grow our channel. So I'm going to wrap this video up right there. I've got some really good videos that will be coming up. More on this on my never-ending journey of picks. I do have a video coming up about that. And again, changes that I've made as an older musician. So I do have a video coming up on that. It should be pretty cool and a bunch of really nice things coming up. Still working on the Comfortably Numb video. I was hoping to have it done by now, but there's just so many things going on. And now we're getting ready to start redoing a bedroom. So, and that's such a big video that it's taken me some time to get around to that one. Because, I mean, that one's just not easy to do. So it's taking me a little longer than I had hoped. So on that note, going to wrap it up right there. And like the great Sammy Hagar says, if you miss the beat, you lose the rhythm and nothing falls into place. And no matter what you do, for the love of God, rock on.